Hey there, Doughboy here, and I gotta say, there have been some pretty good horror movies to come out this year, and I did my best to narrow it down to what I think are the top 10 best horror movies to come out in 2016. Now, this is my own personal top 10 list, so yours might be different, and you might not agree with me. But this isn't a definitive list. It's my list. Also, I have not seen every horror movie to come out this year. I can tell you right now, there are quite a few I have missed. I can't watch every movie released in the year, so I do my best to find the best. But before I get to the top 10 list itself, I have a few honorable mentions that I have to bring up because I would be doing you a disservice otherwise. The first honorable mention is Before I Wake. In this awesome movie from Mike Flanagan, a family whom has lost a child brings in an adoptive child, one whose dreams literally come true. Next up is Clown. This movie was actually made 2 years ago, and had been released in other countries, but did not see a United States release until 2016, so one could argue this one. But it's an honorable mention, so it doesn't really matter. But in this movie, a guy buys a clown suit for his son's birthday. Problem is, it's not your ordinary clown suit. And my last honorable mention is Lights Out. This movie has some really memorable scenes of a frightening figure of a woman who only exists in the darkness. Definitely worth a watch. Now, without further ado, here are the top 10 horror movies of 2016. Number 10. The Monster. The Monster is about a divorced and neglectful mother and her independent young daughter, who get in a car accident on an empty road and are then trapped in the broke-down car as a monster stalks them in the darkness outside. The mother and daughter are very believable. They are sad people in a terrible situation that allows them to grow and change. Because when faced with certain death by a brutish monster that wants to eat your face off like a bath salt zombie, people tend to whistle a different tune. Number 9. Bite. In Bite, Casey, the bride-to-be, gets bit by a mysterious insect while on her bachelorette party vacation. After returning home, things start to get weird, and then weirder, and then outright gross as she begins to transform into the hive mother of hundreds of little disgusting bath bead bug eggs that she excretes out onto nearly every surface of her apartment. It's gross, but it's a pretty good body horror. Number 8. The Neighbor. The Neighbor is from the same writer and director that is known for the Collector series, which is made further evident by the protagonist of the story, John, who is played by Josh Stewart. This guy is in a few of Marcus Dunstan's movies. Josh Stewart is to Marcus Dunstan as Johnny Depp is to Tim Burton. Anyway, John and his girlfriend are doing some shady businesses out of their house, and little do they know that their redneck neighbors are doing something even shadier in theirs. And speaking of their neighbors, the patriarch of the family is expertly played by Bill Engvall. Who'd have thunk that a blue-collar comedian would play a great, creepy, violent neighbor? Nice telescope. Used to look at stars? Nope. Use it to spy on my neighbors. Here's your sign. Number 7. Southbound. Southbound is a horror anthology movie very akin to Creepshow or VHS. Actually, it's from the creators of VHS. Several different stories unfold along a stretch of desert highway, a road that leads to unspeakable horrors, a highway of evil and death, a highway to hell. This movie is a great blend of action and atmosphere, and I have very few complaints about it. Even the obvious CGI monsters look creepy. Definitely give this one a watch. Number 6. Intruders. Intruders shows us the life of Anna, a woman with a crippling case of agoraphobia. She is too terrified to step foot out of her front door. She cannot even leave her home to attend the funeral of a family member, which makes things even more difficult for her when she is incapable of escaping from some home invaders. But Anna's fear of the world outside of her home is not her only problem. I can't say much without giving away the movie, but have you ever seen the 90s cartoon Hey Arnold? Remember the stoop kid that was afraid to leave his stoop? Know how he was mean, but really he was actually a nice guy that was just afraid under all that anger? Yeah, this ain't that. Enjoy. Number 5. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. In The Autopsy of Jane Doe, a father and son family coroner duo are brought in whom appears to be a female murder victim that died of mysterious causes. Mysterious causes being several other people were found dead around her, and she was the only one without any outward signs of trauma. No one knew how she died, so she was sent to these two to figure it out. They answer some questions only to bring up even more, deepening the mystery even further with every cut from the scalpel. The actors in this movie are pretty believable, but the one thing that really stood out the most to me is the one thing that has absolutely nothing to do with the movie, really. The son and the father and son coroner team really reminds me of Evan Peters of American Horror Story fame. At times he looks a tiny bit like him, but it's mostly the way he speaks and his mannerisms. It's Tate to a T. A capital T. Number 4. 10 Cloverfield Lane. 10 Cloverfield Lane is a kind of pseudo-sequel to the hit movie Cloverfield, where a giant monster emerges from the ocean and attacks New York City like Godzilla before him. No, not like that one. And that's not Godzilla. That's Zilla. Toho fixed that. But anyway, 10 Cloverfield Lane isn't anything at all like its predecessor, so if you go into it expecting to see a giant monster attacking the city again, you're going to be disappointed. This time around, about 95% of the story revolves around 3 people trapped inside of a bunker. But how could it be a good movie if it's just about 3 people in a tiny little bunker, I hear you ask? The movie expertly builds tension between the characters, and each of the characters is equally as expertly portrayed by the actors that play them. The bunker was built by a man named Howard, who was played by John Goodman, and he is actually very scary. He can go from calm and nice to intimidating and frightening at the drop of a hat. I literally felt uncomfortable and as if I were walking on eggshells along with the other characters every time John Goodman was on screen. Just like the characters in the movie, I was on edge and unsure of how Howard would react at any moment, and that made him very scary. Yes, the jolly guy from Roseanne is frightening in this. The other 2 people in the bunker are Emmett, played by John Gallagher Jr., and Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, both of whom were taken in by Howard after some mysterious disaster that happened outside. What is really going on outside the bunker? Is there a giant monster attacking the city? Did some kind of war destroy the outside world? Is there any of humanity left? What is happening out there? You will have to watch and find out. Number 3. Train to Busan. Train to Busan is a South Korean horror movie where a zombie outbreak begins across the country while a large group of people are on a train from Seoul to Busan, hence the title. Zombies have hit pop culture and have gotten to the point where they have become a cultural norm. Most zombie movies just aren't scary anymore, and it feels as though everything has been done. This is not the case in Train to Busan. Though practically everything has already been done, this movie somehow managed to make the zombies fresh again. Maybe it made them scary again is a better thing to say. Though I am not big on reading subtitles in my movies, with this one I made an exception, and I'm glad I did. Definitely check it out. These next 2 were really difficult to decide on which I liked more, and in the end it all boiled down to personal preference for me. But here we go. Number 2. Green Room. In Green Room, a punk rock group is hired to play at a bar. Only problem is the bar is filled with Nazis, and run by Nazis. So things go south pretty quickly when the band sees something they aren't supposed to, and find themselves trapped inside the back room of a bar filled with angry, drunk racists. With the acting talent that went into this movie, I expected it to be good, but damn, I didn't expect it to be near top of the list good. Also, I'm pretty sure that the director of Green Room is also a Star Trek fan, since there are 2 stars in this movie that were very popular in Star Trek. The Nazi owner of the bar is played by Sir Patrick Stewart, aka Captain Jean-Luc Picard, and the bassist in the band is none other than Chekhov from the new Star Trek movies, Anton Yelchin, whom sadly passed away earlier this year, making this one of his last movies. And what a note to go out on. Rest in peace, Anton, and thank you for the awesome work you did. I started this list off by giving some honorable mentions, the first of which was a movie from writer-director Mike Flanagan. Now, I am going to finish the list off with another movie of his. I am a fan of Mike Flanagan's work, to say the least. Every movie that he has done that I have seen, I have enjoyed, and I recommend you give them all a watch. But anyway, without further ado, my number one horror movie of 2016 is Hush. Hush is about a deaf and mute woman who lives alone out in the woods. She converses with friends and family online, and has the occasional visit from her neighbors, but she seems to mostly keep to herself. Then one night, the woman's quiet life changes when she is attacked by a man in a mask. A man that has already killed one of her neighbors and is now out to get her. But the twisted individual discovers her disability and decides to play with her instead of killing her right away, like a sick game of cat and mouse where the woman has to use her other senses in order to survive. In most slasher-type movies such as this, the killer is silent and the victims are the ones making all the noise. Whereas in Hush, it flips the entire genre on end and becomes the opposite. It is really a unique take on the genre. Also, another interesting thing to mention is, the killer isn't afraid to reveal his face. Very early on, he removes his mask to reveal that he is none other than John Gallagher Jr. Yep, this guy is in not one, but two of my top 10 favorite horror movies of this year, and I can't wait to see what else this guy has in store in the future. Hush is one of the best movies I have seen in recent years, and I highly recommend you go watch it. Go watch any of these movies, really, and I'm pretty sure you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Doughboy from Hardcore Academy, and peace out.